child, $25, $30. And then everybody, we as a community, we started to really talk about, well, what else can we do to fundraise? Let's do raffles. Let's do so we started to do different things with that support of that community that, eventually turned into larger fundraising and the need to formalize the foundation.
So this foundation essentially started with the company that you were working
Yes.
for with the support of your work colleagues and owners.
Yes, definitely.
Pretty amazing. So at what point did you realize that this was a full-time deal and you needed to leave your corporate life?
It was really always pretty much a full-time deal.
Yeah.
In that I still kept obviously I had a role and a job, and my kids were young and we were putting them through school and all of that. But the foundation was always in the same building as where I was. So we had a corner for the foundation, a couple of cubicles. And so it was always between my work and the things that I needed to do and the foundation. Evenings, doing the foundation evenings on weekends. It was a full time. I'm really blessed that my husband was able to help with the kids, on evenings and the weekends when I wasn't there over the years. But about 6 years ago, I was able to be full time with Corazón de Vida.
What an incredible commitment from your employer at the time too. To think about that. Here's an employee that came to you and said, "Hey, this is my past, and I want to try to help." I mean, that to me, that sounds incredible. I don't know at some point in my life if I would have been that open to saying, "Yeah, sure, let's do this." That with cubicles in the corner sounds like a major commitment from them.
It was definitely a major commitment. And one of the things that I've learned throughout the years, and this is what I share with every one of our volunteers, is that, everyone is looking for some way of making a difference. We all want to have purpose in our lives. We really do. And for a lot of people, they can do that through church, through other, things that come up in their life that allows them to do that. But there's many of us that don't really have anything that we can grab onto. And I've always said that the best gift we can give people is to give them the opportunity to participate and to make a difference through Corazón de Vida or any other way. We've had so many people that, we talk to them about what we do and ask them to join us. And, after they've experienced supporting the kids and meeting the kids and having that feeling of, having made a difference, they tell us how much their life has changed and what a gift it was for them. So we always, rather than be concerned or embarrassed like I was initially to tell my story, I learned that by telling my story, I was really opening up an opportunity for people to find purpose in life.
Yeah.
And that's been really beautiful. I mean, over the years, we've been around for 24 years. We've had so many people tell us, hey, I participated with Corazón de Vida when I was in high school or in college, and I'm now working for a nonprofit. And that was really what caused me to even look at nonprofits. And just a lot of different stories of people where their lives have really been touched and changed because of the opportunity to participate.
Yeah, we're really on the receiving end of that. We feel good that we're donating, but we're the ones that are benefiting from that donation because it enriches our lives, I think. So how long did it take, you revisited where you grew up at and you knew you needed help. How long did it take you to get that location to a place where you felt good about it and they were on the road to, I don't want to say recovery, but they were on that right path for you to go, okay, I feel good about this.
So it took us about 7 years.
Wow.
7 years of fundraising for one orphanage. And at the same time, we found a great partner couple that are now the directors of that orphanage and that have been for the last 24, 25 years. And that's DJ and Lynette. You've probably met them. And they were just kids when they started. But having that partnership really worked because we could start to do all the fundraising in the U.S. They could run the orphanage and have the financial accountability that we needed for our donors. And that worked out really well, and they started to build their network as well, directly supporting the orphanage. So as they brought in more support, we were able to cut down on how much we needed to fund the orphanage. And at that point, we realized we had the opportunity to expand to other orphanages. And then we started with 2, and then we added another. And, today we have 10 orphanages that we support.
So you also provide the tools, it sounds like, to these orphanages or these leaders down there to learn how to be a little bit self-sustainable, how to raise some of their own money and not rely 100% on your donations at some point.
Yes, we try to do that as much as possible. Work with them with special projects that can help them raise their own money. I think one of the important things is to really look at each orphanage and their abilities and capabilities closely when it comes to self-sustaining projects, like doing a farm. For instance, one of the orphanages that we support in Valle de Guadalupe has a big farm, and they're able to raise some money from that. We've had other projects in other orphanages, and it works as long as the orphanage is prepared to do that and has the personnel to support it. We really encourage them to reach out to other groups and other organizations and bring in support from others, so that Corazon de Vida is not 100% of their support. God forbid something would happen to us, and we wouldn't want to cause the same problem that had my orphanage in the beginning, lose all their support and
sure,
be close to shutting down.
Sure. So you mentioned you're working with 10 orphanages now. Is that kind of your standard max is 10 orphanages, no more, because it gets challenging to have more than that, or is there significance behind that?
The significance behind that is what we can do as far as monthly support, and we really want to make sure that whatever orphanage we're supporting, that they have what they need to provide for the kids and not have to worry about whether they're going to be able to pay their bills the next month or feed the kids the next month. And the main reason for that is that we're looking at this from the perspective of long-term support and actually being able to break that cycle of poverty and abandonment in Baja. And for us, the way to do that is to provide support and education to the children that are in the orphanages to a point where they can become self-sufficient and able to provide for their own families in the future and be able to support the community. So aside from supporting the orphanages monthly, we have our continuing education program, and that program puts kids through college and technical school.
Yeah.
That are, the same kids that are coming out of these orphanages. We've had probably about 65 kids go through that process. 45 are currently in the program, 45 to 50 that are currently in college, university, local colleges and universities in Baja, in their own communities, where they can be professionals in their own backyards, in a sense, and give back to that community.
Sure.
Eventually. So we have about 15 that have graduated already.
Yeah.
Including doctors and dentists and psychologists and you name it.
I met one of your graduates at the fundraiser in San Diego, and I just could tell that this was such a well-rounded individual that had been, fostered and cared for, and just was so impressive. Spoke great English. I mean, like the whole bit. I was like, wow, this is really, some wonderful work that you have done on the education side too. And I think a lot of times people miss that component. They want to give and feed, but there's, like you said, the education on being sustainable on their own too.
Well, and it's a lot to do. I mean, for the first, 15, 17 years, we really focused only on providing funding to the orphanages, making sure that the kids were fed. We knew that the other part was important, but we just didn't have the funding.
Yeah.
And it was, we got to a point where we started to see the same kids that we saw when they were 4 and 5 years old, and now they're graduating from high school, And now, we're looking at them and saying, okay, what's going to happen to them once they leave the orphanage?
Yeah.
At 18, they're free to leave. They're pretty much given their paperwork and they're done. Same as in the U.S. And so it was at that point that we decided we needed to take a leap of faith and say, hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna find the funding to support these students. And we started in the 2011-2012 school year with 3 students, and now we're at more than 60 students.
Very impressive.
Going through the program.
Can we step back a little bit and talk about some of the needs of these orphanages? I think oftentimes we get wrapped up in, I've got something extra at my house, maybe it's a bag of toys and some stuffed animals and maybe there's some clothes there. And I'm sure those things are great, but when I look at the list of true needs, we're talking about rice and beans, literally, right? And cleaning supplies.
Yes.
I mean, can you tell us what some of those biggest needs are and where those focuses are today?
For most people, the easiest way, and this is the way George explains it all the time, the easiest way to think about it is think about your household and think about the things that you need. Everyday, mundane things like, dish soap and detergent and cleaning supplies and laundry supplies and toilet paper and napkins. All of that an orphanage needs times 20.
Yeah.
If you whatever you use for a family of 2 or 4, just multiply that times the number of kids in an orphanage, and that's what they need. And the important thing about that when it comes to supplies, and those are usually the only things that Corazón de Vida will take, just because there's a lot of other groups that do clothing and toys sometimes, and the kids sometimes they have way too many toys, and they really enjoy playing outdoors, playing with a soccer ball and playing with dirt and doing those things, and they don't do a whole lot with toys.
Sure, gotcha.
Really.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people, they think kids and they think toys. That's the first thing they think about. But so we usually ask people to do, if they want to do something special for the kids, to do something personal, like clean new underwear, socks, a new pair of shoes, those kinds of things we usually go after. But definitely supplies and definitely food. Anything like you mentioned, rice and beans, and we ask for proteins, like tuna and things like that are non-perishable that can last for.
They can store in their pantry.
Yeah.
I've seen so many lists of needs over the years. I can't say once I've seen cookies on that list or something that is a treat. And it pulls at my heartstrings because I love cookies, right? But you just realize that they're very focused on what their specific needs are, and they're not over asking. And like you said, if you want to do something special, there's always something that you can do specific, like you said, clothes or underwear or socks or something like that. But I think people would be surprised at how basic those needs are that need to be met.
Definitely.
You also brought up an important point, and I'm just going to reiterate it because I know the answers. Sometimes they just need some financial support to pay the electrical bill or the gas bill or the water bill or oftentimes, because I'm sponsored in my off-road racing by a tire company, they need tires for their bus.
Yes.
I can't say how many times I've been asked for tires, but, just, again, back to the basics to keep that household moving, right?
Right. And there's things in between that they need. For instance, they may have a broken window. They may have a leaky faucet. They may have those kinds of issues that if we wait for a group to come down and fix it, it may be 6 months to a year. But if they have the funding where they can call the local repair person to come in, and we're not only helping the orphanage, we're helping the local community by supporting jobs in the local community. So that we always try to make sure that we can help them with those kinds of projects and not just wait around for a group to come down and fix things.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
and one other thing I was going to mention when we were talking about cookies, we always ask groups to not bring candy. And that's another thing that most people think about when they think of kids. Oh, candy. We'll bring a bunch of candy. Now, we were guilty of that in the early years. I remember if DJ and Lynette were here, they would say, oh, we hated your group when you came down, because by the time we left for the day. The kids had so much candy that they were bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. But we've learned, obviously, over the years that that's not a good thing, especially not only because of, kids get wild,